Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we pull out the core insights from, well, a whole stack of sources, really. We want to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. And today, we are diving deep into the incredible, ever-shifting career of David Bowie.
David Robert Jones, originally.
Exactly. A figure known less for staying the same and more for, I guess, this absolute dedication to constant reinvention.
That's absolutely right. You could argue Bowie is maybe the most influential musician of the whole 20th century, especially his work in the 70s.
Right.
He wasn't just reflecting cultural shifts back then. You really get the sense he was, well, making them happen.
Engineering them almost.
Yeah, precisely. So our mission today is to get past the standard biography stuff.
Okay.
We want to dig into the details, the sort of strategic thinking behind those changes, from the psychological stuff early on, right through to his frankly staggering innovations in finance and art.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. The foundations. The man behind the eventual starman. Born in Brixton, London, 1947. And the sources, they really paint this picture of an almost immediate, very deep connection to music.
Yeah, it seems that way. We found this amazing quote where the young David Jones describes hearing Little Richard's Tutti Frutti.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't just say he liked it. He said it felt like a genuine spiritual experience. He felt, and this is his quote, like he heard God.
Wow. That's intense, especially for a kid hearing rock and roll.
It really is. And it hints at that intensity that drove him later. But you also have to look at the family side. Some really personal, sometimes quite difficult influences shaping him.
Like his half-brother.
Exactly. Terry Burns, his maternal half-brother, 10 years older. And Terry introduced Bowie to things that just stuck with him his whole life.
Okay, like what?
Well, modern jazz, for one. That's what got him interested in playing the saxophone, the Grafton sax specifically.
Okay.
And also deeper things, more philosophical stuff. Buddhism, the occult. These became recurring themes.
And there was a darker side to that family connection too, wasn't there? A shadow, almost.
There was. Terry Burns sadly suffered from schizophrenia. And there was a history of it in their family.
Mm-hmm.
And while that obviously caused Bowie immense personal pain, that closeness to mental instability, that fascination with different states of being, different identities,
Yeah.
It definitely became this sort of foundational, maybe dark backdrop for a lot of his early work, the really intense lyrical stuff.
It gave him a unique perspective, I suppose, on things like alienation, mental health.
I think so. A perspective not many other performers would have had access to, certainly not in the same way.
Now, we absolutely have to talk about the look, specifically the eyes.
Ah, yes. The eyes.
Because it seems like such a deliberate theatrical choice, part of the whole persona building. But the story behind it is, well, it's just an accident, isn't it?
A completely random and actually quite painful accident, pure chance, really. It came from a schoolyard fight.
Right. I read about this
Yeah.
back in '62.
Yeah. He got into a fight with his friend George Underwood, apparently over a girl.
Classic.
Underwood punched him in the left eye. And it wasn't just a black eye, it was serious. Needed 4 months of hospital treatment, multiple surgeries.
Wow.
They managed to save his sight, thankfully. But the damage left him with a condition called anisocoria.
Which means?
Basically, one pupil is permanently dilated. So his left pupil was just stuck wide open. It also messed up his depth perception, apparently.
So why did it look so striking then? Just the size difference?
Well, yeah, the size difference was part of it. But the key thing was the anisocoria meant that pupil couldn't react to light anymore.
Ah.
So the left eye always looked dark, almost black, while his right eye, which was naturally blue, would react normally, get smaller in bright light, bigger in dim light.
So under stage lights, the contrast must have been incredible.
Exactly. One fixed dark pupil, one responsive blue one. It often made it look like his eyes were two completely different colors.
Such a defining visual feature, born out of a teenage punch-up.
Incredible, isn't it? And the amazing part is, he and Underwood actually stayed lifelong friends. Underwood even did artwork for some of Bowie's early albums, like Hunky Dory and Ziggy Stardust.
Turning an injury into part of the art. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so before all the fame, the visuals, the personas, there was one really practical thing he had to do first.
Which was?
Change his name. Because he was still David Jones. Or Davy Jones.
Yes. The name change. That was just pure practical necessity, really. Business sense.
Right.
Because by the mid-'60s, you had the Monkees hitting it big.
Yeah.
And their frontman was?
Also Davy Jones.
Also Davy Jones. So to avoid what would have been, career-killing confusion.
Yeah, definitely.
David Jones adopted Bowie. He apparently chose it after James Bowie, the American pioneer guy.
The Bowie knife guy.
That's the one. So a simple change, really, but it cleared the decks, gave the complex character he was about to become space to, exist in the pop world.
Okay, let's move into section 1 then. We're looking at the music, the eras, and this real mastery of persona. But it didn't start with a bang, did it? There was quite a bit of struggle first.
Oh, absolutely. The sources show him going through a whole string of bands in the mid-60s. The Conrads, the King Bees, the Manish Boys.
None of them really took off?
Nope. And loads of singles that just didn't chart, didn't connect. He was trying everything pop, R&B, psychedelia.
Even that novelty track, The Laughing Gnome.
Yeah, 1967. That was definitely an odd one, with the sped-up, high-pitched gnome voice.
Didn't chart at the time, right?
No, it failed completely. And his first actual album, the self-titled one in 67, also kind of sank without a trace. He just wasn't finding his audience yet.
But it seems like out of that frustration, he made a really key decision. He pivoted towards performance, not just music.
This is absolutely crucial. This is where he starts consciously building the toolkit for reinvention. He started studying dramatic arts.
With Lindsay Kemp.
That's right, the dancer and choreographer. He studied mime, commedia dell'arte, avant-garde theater.
So, learning how to perform the music.
Exactly. Kemp taught him, as Bowie put it, how to express himself through his body, how to make every movement count.
That sounds transformative.
It absolutely was. It gave him the theatrical skills, the physical language he'd used to build basically every persona that came after. He went from just being a musician to being a true performance artist.
And then came the breakthrough. 1969. Space Oddity. The timing couldn't have been better.
You really couldn't script it better, could you? The single came out July 11th, 1969.
Just days before.
Just 5 days before the Apollo 11 launch. The mission to the moon.
And everyone was obsessed with space.
Completely. So this atmospheric, slightly melancholic song about Major Tom, the astronaut drifting off, it just captured the public imagination, gave him his first UK top 5 hit, finally the commercial success he needed.
Okay, so from that breakthrough, we jump to the absolute peak of glam rock, the arrival of Ziggy Stardust.
Legend begins.
And the sources are clear. This wasn't some accidental character. This was designed, calculated even.
Oh, totally calculated. It was like an artistic synthesis project. Bowie basically decided he wanted to create the ultimate pop idol.
So how did he do it? What were the ingredients?
He drew very consciously on 2 main figures. First, the sheer outrageousness and the gender-fluid performance style of Iggy Pop.
Right.
And second, the sort of stripped-back, street-level rock and roll sound of Lou Reed.
And Ziggy was the result.
Ziggy was the result, this messianic, androgynous rock star figure who, as Bowie said, looks like he's landed from Mars.
He launched the whole thing in '72 with the album The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. What was the immediate impact?
Huge, immediate, and divisive, definitely. The look alone, the red mullet, the costumes, the makeup, the ambiguity, it was a shock.
It created this sort of cult following.
Absolutely. The sources call it the cult of Bowie. The album was a monster hit, stayed on the UK charts for 2 whole years. It proved he'd finally mastered that theatricality he learned from Kemp and fused it with really powerful rock music.
But it came at a cost, didn't it? The sources talk a lot about the psychological toll of living as Ziggy.
Yeah, this is where you see the real danger of fully immersing yourself in a persona. Bowie himself admitted he started to lose track of where Ziggy ended and David began.
He said something about being a robot off stage.
Yeah, off stage, I'm a robot. On stage, I achieve emotion. Which is pretty chilling when you think about it.
It sounds like he felt trapped.
He did. He said the character wouldn't leave me alone for years. He genuinely started to question his own sanity. He was afraid he was going mad, like his brother.
Which led to that famous moment on stage in 1973 at the Hammersmith Odeon.
The sudden retirement, this is the last show we'll ever do, shocked everyone, including his own band, the Spiders from Mars.
He basically had to kill Ziggy to save himself.
It seems that way. It was a response to a genuine mental health crisis, fueled by the nonstop touring and the pressure of being Ziggy 24/7.
But here's the paradox, right? This moment of personal crisis coincided with his absolute commercial peak.
It's incredible. He kills off his most famous creation, and then suddenly, by the end of '73, he's the UK's biggest selling act.
Because his back catalog took off.
Exactly. Reissues meant he had something like 6 albums all on the UK chart at the same time. Even the Laughing Gnome, that failed single from '67.
The novelty track.
Yeah. It somehow got re-released and went all the way to number 6. It was absolute Bowie mania.
So, after killing Ziggy, the only way was another radical shift. Mid-'70s, he moves to the U.S., new sound. Classic soul.
Yeah, another sharp turn. He relocated, embraced American soul and funk for the Young Americans album in 1975.
He called it plastic soul himself, didn't he? Almost ironically.
He did. It was definitely a deliberate move away from the glam rock sound.
Yeah.
And yeah, it alienated some of his UK fans who loved Ziggy.
But it worked in America.
It absolutely worked in America. It was key to him finally breaking through there in a big way. It gave him his first U.S. #1 single, Fame.
Which he wrote with
John Lennon. And Carlos Alomar, his guitarist. A huge moment for him in the States.
And that success led into probably his most controversial, maybe darkest persona, the Thin White Duke.
Yeah, the Duke era, tied intrinsically to the Station to Station album in 1976.
And also tied to, well, serious drug problems.
Very serious cocaine addiction, peak addiction, really. Bowie later said he could barely remember recording Station to Station at all, just flashes.
Wow, and that detachment comes through in the music, doesn't it? It's quite cold.
Very cold, very precise, almost mechanical in places. And the Duke persona reflected that. Elegant, Aryan, severely dressed, emotionally completely unavailable.
Like an extension of the character he played in the film The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thomas Jerome Newton, the isolated alien. The Duke was almost like Newton let loose in the music world. Visually very striking, but also quite chilling.
Now, this is the period where things get really difficult regarding some of the statements he made, the pro-fascism comments in '76.
Yes, we have to address this, and it's important we just report what the sources say impartially. During this time, he did make comments to publications like Playboy suggesting Britain could benefit from a fascist leader.
And there was the incident at Victoria Station, the alleged salute.
Right. He was photographed arriving back in London, and the photo seems to show him giving a Nazi salute from his car. He always vehemently denied this, saying he was just caught mid-wave by the photographer.
And he was also detained at the Russian-Polish border around that time.
For having Nazi paraphernalia in his luggage, which he claimed belonged to someone else he was traveling with, or was research for a film project. It was a very messy, very concerning period.
How did he explain it later?
He consistently blamed it on the drugs and the persona. He said the cocaine addiction had pushed him to the brink of insanity, warped his thinking, and that the coldness of the Duke persona allowed these extreme, repugnant ideas to surface. He deeply regretted those statements later in life.
But the irony is, those comments, however damaging personally, had this huge, unintended positive ripple effect.
Absolutely. His statements, along with some similar racially charged comments made by Eric Clapton around the same time, acted as a major catalyst.
For Rock Against Racism.
Precisely. It directly spurred the formation of Rock Against Racism, a really vital movement that brought together musicians and fans to fight fascism and racism in the UK music scene and beyond. So his darkest moment inadvertently sparked a significant positive political movement.
And Bowie himself did publicly denounce those earlier views later on.
Oh, yes. He made his anti-racist, anti-fascist stance very clear in subsequent years.
Okay, so emerging from that darkness, he makes another huge shift. He escapes to West Berlin.
This wasn't just an artistic whim. This was about survival. He moved to West Berlin in 1976, specifically to get away from the LA drug scene, the spotlight.
And he took Iggy Pop with him.
Yeah, the idea was for both of them to clean up, get sober. They lived relatively anonymously in Schöneberg, focusing on recovery and, well, absorbing the atmosphere of the city.
And this led to probably his most critically revered body of work, the Berlin Trilogy.
Absolutely. The collaboration with Brian Eno and his longtime producer, Tony Visconti.
Resulting in Low, Heroes, and Lodger.
Released between '77 and '79. These albums were a complete departure again. Very influenced by German electronic music, Kraftwerk, Nu, what they called Krautrock, and also by Eno's ambient music experiments.
Lots of instrumentals, fragmented songs.
Yeah, minimalist structures, experimental sounds. It's amazing to think RCA, his record label, initially hated Low. They thought it was career suicide, completely uncommercial.
They tried to stop him releasing it.
They did. But Bowie stuck to his guns, and of course, it's now seen as a landmark album. Heroes was maybe slightly more accessible with that iconic title track.
Recorded right near the Berlin Wall, wasn't it?
Yeah, at Hansa Studios. You could literally see the wall from the control room window. That sense of place of division and tension really permeates the record.
And the experimental approach wasn't just the sound, it was how they made the music too, right? Especially on Lodger.
Definitely. That's where Brian Eno brought in his famous oblique strategies cards.
Okay, explain those. What are they?
They're basically a deck of cards Eno created, each with a cryptic instruction or suggestion designed to break creative habits to force you out of comfortable patterns.
Like what kind of instructions?
Things like use an old idea, or make a sudden, destructive, unpredictable action, incorporate, or honor thy error as a hidden intention. Quite abstract, really.
And they actually use these while recording.
Oh, yeah. Famously for the track Boys Keep Swinging, the strategy led to the band members all swapping instruments.
So the guitarist plays drums, the bassist plays guitar. Chaos.
Pretty much. But it created this sort of teetering, exhilarating energy in the track. Another example for Move On. They apparently took the chord structure from Bowie's earlier hit All the Young Dudes, but played it backwards.
Just to see what happened.
Exactly. Pure sonic experimentation, trying to sabotage their own routines.
And the ultimate proof of how complex and influential these Berlin albums were came much later, didn't it? From the classical world.
That's right. Philip Glass, the hugely respected American composer.
What did he do?
He actually adapted Low, Heroes, and Lodger into full-blown classical symphonies. His first, fourth, and 12th symphonies are based directly on those albums.
Wow, that's incredible validation.
It really is. Glass said Bowie had this amazing ability to create fairly complex pieces of music masquerading as simple pieces. The symphonies really highlight that underlying structure and sophistication.
Okay, let's move into section 2, the 80s. Bowie comes back from Berlin not as an experimental artist, but as, well, a global pop superstar.
A definite shift back towards the mainstream, but still on his own terms initially. Scary Monsters and Supergroups in 1980 sort of bridged the gap.
That's the one with Ashes to Ashes, right?
Yeah.
Where Tom returns.
Yeah, Major Tom Revisited. The junkie, as the song says, coming back to Earth, reflecting perhaps Bowie's own journey through addiction and recovery.
And the video for Ashes to Ashes was huge, wasn't it? Very influential.
Groundbreaking, one of the most expensive music videos made up to that point. But crucially, parts of it were filmed in this London nightclub called Blitz.
Which was the hub for?
The emerging new romantic movement. Kids like Steve Strange, Boy George. Bowie basically put them, and that whole aesthetic, onto the global stage via MTV.
So even when going mainstream, he was still identifying and platforming the underground.
Exactly. He had his finger on the pulse.
But the absolute commercial peak, the blockbuster era, was Let's Dance in 1983.
Unquestionably. This was a very deliberate move for massive global appeal.
Teaming up with Nile Rodgers from Chic.
Yeah, specifically choosing Rodgers for that sharp, funky, contemporary sound. Rodgers knew how to make sophisticated dance music that was also incredibly radio-friendly.
And it worked. Big time.
Oh, it was enormous. Platinum in the UK, platinum in the US, generated huge global hits. The title track, Modern Love, China Girl, you couldn't escape it in '83.
And the timing, again, perfect for the MTV explosion.
Absolutely. Bowie always understood visual presentation, right back to the Kemp training. He instinctively got the power of music videos.
Those videos for Let's Dance, China Girl, they were like mini movies.
Slick, cinematic, and played constantly on MTV. They really cemented his image as this sophisticated global superstar for a whole new generation.
But after that massive success, he started to feel creatively stuck.
It seems so. The albums that followed Let's Dance Tonight, and especially Never Let Me Down in 1987, they were commercially successful, but critically less well-received.
And Bowie himself was critical of them later.
Very critical, especially of Never Let Me Down. He called it his nadir, said it was an awful album. He felt he'd become complacent, creatively lazy, trying to please the huge audience he'd built.
So characteristically, he decided he needed another radical change.
A hard reset. He felt he needed to completely rejuvenate himself artistically.
And his solution was forming a band. Tin Machine.
Yeah, pretty unexpected. From 1988 to 92, he formed Tin Machine with Reeves Gabrels on guitar and the Sales Brothers, Hunt and Tony on drums and bass.
And the idea was to not be the star.
Exactly. It was meant to be a democratic band, a hard rock outfit. He wanted to step back from being David Bowie, the solo icon, and just be the singer in a band again, collaborating as equals.
How did that go down with fans and critics?
Not brilliantly, generally speaking. The first album did well commercially, hit #3 in the UK, but critics were often quite harsh.
What were the complaints?
Things like it being pompous, dogmatic, dull. Some found the lyrics preachy, the production too raw or minimalist after the gloss of the 80s. People wanted Bowie the star, and they got Bowie the, earnest band member.
It didn't quite connect.
Not in the way he maybe hoped. They made a couple of studio albums and a live album, but it eventually fizzled out. Though his collaboration with the guitarist Reeves Gabrels continued for years.
So moving into the 90s and early 2000s, after Tin Machine, he seemed to embrace constant stylistic change again.
Relentlessly experimental, yes. He just kept exploring. Black Tie, White Noise in '93 had soul, jazz, even hip-hop flavors. It felt like a conscious step away from Tin Machine's rock sound.
Reuniting with Nile Rodgers on that one, partially.
Yes, Rodgers produced some tracks. Then later in the 90s, he went into much heavier territory.
Earthling in '97. That was quite different.
Yeah, full-on industrial rock influences, mixed with jungle and drum and bass rhythms, which were very current in the UK underground scene then.
And he also reunited with Brian Eno around this time.
For the Outside album in 1995, that was a really ambitious, dark concept album, sort of neo-noir, dealing with art, murder, technology.
It showed he wasn't afraid to be difficult even in the 90s.
Never. He never settled, always pushing himself and his audience.
But his innovation wasn't just musical in this period. He was way ahead of the curve on technology, too.
BowieNet. This is amazing looking back.
Launched in 1998, what exactly was it?
It was his own internet service provider, an ISP. You could get internet access through David Bowie.
Seriously?
Yeah. And if you subscribed, you got exclusive content, unreleased tracks, photos, special chats, a BowieNet email address.
So like a fan club combined with an AOL.
Kind of, yeah. He totally grasped the potential of the internet for building community and direct fan connection years before most artists, and certainly before social media. Really visionary.
And speaking of connections, his key partnership with Tony Visconti, the producer, got rekindled around this time too, didn't it?
It did, but in a really low-key way initially. They got back together professionally in 1998 to record a song for, wait for it, the Rugrats movie.
The cartoon. Seriously?
Seriously. Apparently the track didn't even make the final film, but the process of working together again was positive.
And that laid the groundwork for
their full-scale reunion on the albums Heathen in 2002 and Reality in 2003, and then ultimately for his final works. That little Rugrats session was surprisingly important.
So the early 2000s saw him back with Visconti, releasing acclaimed albums and touring again.
Yeah, the Reality album led to a reality tour in 2003-2004, and it was massive.
Huge attendance figures, right?
Over 700,000 people came to see the shows. It was one of the highest-grossing tours of that year. He was still a major life force.
But that tour ended abruptly. There was a health scare.
A very serious one. In June 2004, during a show in Germany, he experienced severe chest pain.
They thought it was a pinched nerve at first.
Yeah, that was the initial diagnosis. But it turned out to be much worse, an acutely blocked artery. He needed emergency heart surgery and angioplasty in Hamburg.
And that was it for touring.
That was basically it. They canceled the rest of the tour dates, about 14 shows. And after that, he just quietly retired from large-scale touring altogether. He knew his physical limits had been reached.
His last actual live performance was a couple of years later.
Yeah, his final public singing performance was at a charity event in New York in 2006, alongside Alicia Keys, a very low-key end to his incredible live career.
Okay, Section 3 really drives home this idea of Bowie as more than just a musician, a true polymath. Let's start with his film career.
Yeah, his acting. And the sources point out he was quite selective about the roles he took. Productively selective is the phrase used.
Meaning he wasn't just chasing Hollywood blockbusters.
Generally not. He seemed more drawn to interesting, often art house projects, working with distinctive directors, like Nicholas Ray for The Man Who Fell to Earth.
His first major starring role, right? 1976.
Yeah. And Martin Scorsese for The Last Temptation of Christ in 1988, where he played Pontius Pilate. A smaller role, but a thoughtful performance in a controversial film.
What are the really iconic roles people remember?
Well, The Man Who Fell to Earth is definitely number one, playing Thomas Jerome Newton, the alien. His performance was praised for its sense of genuine alienation, which Bowie later admitted was probably helped by the fact he was living on, quote, cocaine and milk at the time.
Method acting via substance abuse.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Then there's his stage work, which was hugely acclaimed, playing Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, on Broadway in the early 80s.
And he did that with no prosthetic makeup, right?
None at all. Just used his physicality, his movement, drawing directly on that Lindsay kept training to portray Merrick's deformities. Critics raved about it.
And then, the one everyone of a certain generation knows.
Yeah.
Jareth.
The Goblin King, in Jim Henson's Labyrinth from 1986.
That film wasn't a huge hit initially, was it?
No, it sort of flopped at the box office, but it became this massive cult classic on video later. And Bowie's performance, charismatic, slightly sinister, with those amazing costumes and the songs he performed, is completely central to its appeal.
He had such a unique screen presence. Directors still wanted him later on.
Oh, absolutely. Christopher Nolan specifically sought him out to play Nikola Tesla in The Prestige in 2006.
That was great casting.
Perfect casting. And Denis Villeneuve, who directed Blade Runner 2049, said Bowie was his first choice for the main villain, Neander Wallace. He felt Bowie just embodied the spirit of Blade Runner. Sadly, Bowie passed away before they could approach him.
Wow. Okay, beyond acting, he was also a very serious art collector. And a painter himself.
Deeply passionate about art. He famously said, "The only thing I buy obsessively and addictively is art."
What kind of art did he collect?
A really impressive range of modern and contemporary British art, but also international figures. People like Damien Hirst, Frank Auerbach, Henry Moore, and notably, Jean-Michel Basquiat.
They knew Basquiat, didn't they?
Yeah, they were friends in the 80s. Bowie even played Andy Warhol in the film Basquiat in 1996, directed by Julian Schnabel.
And he painted himself, too.
He did. He was quite a prolific painter and sculptor, actually. The cover of his 1995 album Outside is a detail from one of his own self-portraits.
And after he died, the scale of his collection became public knowledge when it was auctioned.
That's right. His family decided to sell the collection, saying quite pragmatically that they just didn't have the space for it all.
And it fetched a huge amount.
An enormous amount. The auctions at Sotheby's in London brought in $32.9 million, which is over $41 million US.
Wow. Any particular highlights?
The top lot was a Basquiat painting called Air Power, which sold for over £7 million alone. It really showed the quality and depth of his collecting eye.
Okay, now for maybe the most unique part of his non-musical career. The financial innovation. The Bowie bonds.
Ah, yes, the Bowie bonds. This is genuinely groundbreaking stuff for a musician in the late 90s.
Explain them simply. What were they?
Okay, so basically in 1997, Bowie issued these things called Bowie bonds. They were the first example of what are called celebrity bonds. He took the future royalties, the money he expected to earn over the next 10 years, from 25 of his older albums, everything recorded before 1990.
Right.
And he used that potential future income stream as collateral to raise money now. It's a type of asset-backed security.
So he was essentially selling off the rights to his future earnings for a lump sum up front.
Exactly. Prudential Insurance bought the bonds for US $55 million. They paid him that money, and in return, they got the royalty income from those albums for the next decade.
That sounds risky. Why did he do it? Why did he need $55 million right then?
Ah, this is the genius part. It wasn't just about getting cash. He needed that money for a very specific reason, to buy back the rights to those same albums from his former manager, Tony DeFries.
Ah, so it was about regaining control of his own work.
Precisely. He'd been in disputes with DeFries over percentages and ownership for years. This was his way to finally get full control over his most important recordings. He used the bond money to buy DeFries out completely.
So he sacrificed 10 years of income.
To gain permanent ownership. It was an incredibly smart, long-term strategic move. When the bonds matured 10 years later, in 2007, the rights to all that music reverted back to Bowie.
Leaving him in complete control of his legacy.
And financially secure, it was a masterstroke. Nobody in music had really done anything quite like it before. True financial innovation from a rock star.
Incredible. Okay, let's move to the final section, section 4. His final act, which seems as carefully constructed as anything he did earlier in his career.
Absolutely. Starting with the surprise return. After that heart attack in 2004, he basically vanished from the public eye for nearly a decade. No new music, very few appearances.
Until the next day in 2013, which came out of nowhere, right?
Completely out of the blue. He had recorded the entire album in total secrecy over a couple of years. No leaks, no announcements. It just appeared. A brilliant piece of managing his own narrative.
But the real final statement was Blackstar, released January 8th, 2016.
His 69th birthday.
Then, just 2 days later,
He passed away. We then learned he'd been diagnosed with liver cancer about 18 months earlier.
And he'd kept that completely private.
Completely private, known only to his family and closest collaborators. He spent that time working intensely on Blackstar.
And his producer, Tony Visconti, confirmed it was intended as a final statement.
Yes, Visconti said Blackstar was deliberately conceived and created as Bowie's parting gift, his swan song. He knew he was dying, and he made this album as his final artistic act.
The lyrics seem to make that explicit, don't they?
Heartbreakingly so, especially on the song Lazarus. The video shows him frail, in a hospital bed, sometimes blindfolded.
And the opening line.
Look up here, I'm in heaven. It's incredibly direct. The whole album is filled with themes of mortality, legacy, transcendence. It's a dense, challenging, but ultimately beautiful final piece.
And the public reaction to his death was just immense.
Absolutely overwhelming. Record sales surged globally. Blackstar went to #1 everywhere.
And his back catalog flew back up the charts, too.
Yeah, at one point he had something like 19 albums in the UK Top 100 simultaneously. And video views exploded on the day after he died. His videos were viewed 51 million times on Vivo alone. The most viewed artist in a single day up to that point.
It showed the depth of his connection with people.
Definitely.
And finally, he received major recognition from the music industry establishment, posthumously, at the Grammys.
Yes, the 2017 Grammys really became a tribute to him and Blackstar.
How did the album do?
It won everything it was nominated for. All 5 categories. Best Alternative Music Album, Best Rock Song, Best Rock Performance.
Which is surprising because he hadn't actually won many Grammys for his music before, had he?
That's the incredible thing. Despite his massive influence over decades, his only previous Grammy wins had been for Best Music Video and a Lifetime Achievement Award. These were his first ever Grammy wins in actual musical categories. A huge, if belated, validation from the industry.
So looking back at his whole career, his influence is just vast.
Yeah.
Hard to even measure.
It really is. You hear critics use incredible superlatives. The Guardian called him the most important and influential artist since the Beatles. Rolling Stone flat out called him the greatest rock star ever.
And his influence crosses genres, styles, art forms.
Completely. Punk, new wave, goth, electronica, even hip-hop artists cite him. Fashion, visual art, film. He touched everything.
And remarkably, he's still a huge commercial force, even years after his death.
Yeah.
Especially on vinyl.
Yes, it's amazing. As of 2022, David Bowie was officially named the UK's best-selling vinyl artist of the entire 21st century so far. People are still constantly discovering and collecting his work on physical formats.
And his legacy is being preserved institutionally, too.
Definitely. There was the massively successful David Bowie Is exhibition, which toured the world and was seen by over 2 million people.
And there's a permanent center opening soon.
Yeah, the David Bowie Center for the Study of Performing Arts is set to open in London at the V&A East Storehouse in 2025. It's going to house his entire archive, over 80,000 items. Notebooks, lyrics, costumes, instruments, photos, an incredible resource.
So if you had to sum it all up, what was the core of his power, his enduring appeal?
I think it comes down to that relentless reinvention. He fundamentally challenged, as one source put it, the whole notion of what it was to be a rock star.
He refused to be pinned down.
Never. He always chose the next thing, the difficult path, the artistic exploration over just repeating a successful formula. He kept himself and his audience constantly guessing, constantly evolving.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe think about after this. We've talked about his incredible legacy, his self-mastery, his influence. But consider this. David Bowie twice turned down royal honors from the Queen. He declined a CBE in 2000, and then he declined a knighthood in 2003.
Right, I remember that.
And his reason. He said, quote, "I would never have any intention of accepting anything like that. I seriously don't know what it's for. It's not what I spent my life working for."
Interesting.
So the question is, what does that absolute refusal of establishment validation of knighthoods and titles tell us about his idea of success? What was he really working for, if not the conventional measures of legacy?
That's a great question to end on. What did ultimate success look like through his very unique eyes?
Something to ponder.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the universe of David Bowie.
Thank you.